I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm gone. So gone.
Okay, so the rest of the build kit has come in, kinda. I got the lower build kit from 22 Mods. It has the buffer tube. We got the buffer spring and the buffer. We got the castle nut and the plate. And we got this lower parts kit. And one thing they did that I thought was kind of nice, and I think this would probably come in handy, especially if you're somewhat new to building, is they color coordinated all of these bags. So inside of the white bag, you've got your takedown pivot pins and the springs and detent. And the yellow bag, you got your bolt catch plunger, your spring. In the red bag, you've got all the parts to put your trigger together. In the blue bag, you're going to have everything that you're going to need for your magazine catch and mag release. Black bag is going to have your safety selector, so on and so forth. So everything's kind of color coordinated, which I think is kind of nice. Now, this lower kit was supposed to come with an SB3 pistol brace. That was not in the package. That being said, nobody's perfect. Mistakes happen. To me, the most important thing is that those mistakes get handled in a professional and an efficient manner. I emailed 22 Mods that evening, probably about 7 o'clock at night. The very next morning, I got an email back. They apologized, and they immediately shipped out the SB3 brace. So far, major kudos to 22 Mods. They're taking care of it. And again, you know, stuff like that happens. As long as they take care of it, they're fine by me. And I've already got the tracking info on that, so it is on its way. Also, in this package, I've got some magazines. I've got the bolt carrier group, and I've got a charging handle and a whole bunch of packing peanuts. There we go. So, great job on the packaging on this, gentlemen. Thanks for all the packing peanuts. I got to clean off of this now. There we go. So, I got this bolt carrier group off of Durkin Tactical. It's got a laser engraved American flag on the side of it here. This thing is bone dry, and I do mean bone dry. So we're definitely going to be taking this all the way apart, and we're going to be oiling these up. I'll be going over that. More packing peanuts. And I got some PMag 300 Blackout mags. Now, I've talked to a few different people. I have yet to own a 300 Blackout. This is my 300 Blackout. And everybody I have talked to has said that you can use Garden Variety 5.56 mags. And at first glance, this looks exactly like a Garden Variety 5.56 223 PMag. I do like the fact that it has the laser engraved 300 Blackout, and I also got some bands that say 300 Blackout. That way you will never confuse your 300 Blackout mags with your 5.56 mags. These were supposedly specific to 300 Blackout. These are the first two that I'm going to use. When I do go shoot this, I think I am going to try some 5.56 mags to kind of see how they work out. I've talked to a couple of people that say 90+% of the time those will work fine. Every once in a while, you know, you may get some, feeding issues, but, for the most part, I think you can use Garden Variety 5.56 mags. And I got a charging handle also from Durkin Tactical. And sticking with the Punisher theme, it is an ambidextrous Punisher charging handle. So we now have everything that we're going to need, with the exception of the SB3 brace, which would probably be one of the last things we would put on anyway. Again, going to be here in just a couple of days, but we can now go ahead and get started. I am going to probably put the upper together first and do a video on just the upper, and then I will probably do a separate video on the lower. But yeah, let's go ahead and get this started. Okay, so one of the first things I like to put on, because as I mentioned in a previous video, it's kind of a pain in the hind end, is the dust cover. So one of the first things you're going to do is they have a little hook, and there's a little ridge or an indentation on one end of the rod that goes into the dust cover. And normally what they will do when they send you a dust cover is they send you 2 of them, because they know what a pain it is to put one of these on. So there's a little hook that looks like that, and you're going to want to take that and put it on this little ridge, and then with a pair of needle nose secure that on. This one came with one of them already installed. Normally they will do that. If it doesn't, you'll see, I mean, it's pretty obvious on which side of this rod that a little indentation is on. Just kind of guide it on there, take a pair of needle nose, and snap it in place. Hopefully you'll get one that already has it installed. If not, it's not that hard to put it on. You just got to be a little patient when you put it on, okay? And then take your extra little U-clip there, save it for later just in case you lose one. So the first thing we got to do is this little guide rod goes through this part of the upper and goes through the dust cover, and in this center part there's a spring that's going to go in here to kind of help hold tension. And you'll notice that on one side of the dust cover, on the inside, that's actually going to go in towards where the inside of the stripped upper is going to be, there's a long little indentation right here. That's where the long part of the string is going to go. So what you want to do is set your dust cover in this section where it's supposed to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this little guide rod and insert it until it gets to where the spring is going to be on the inside here. And then this little section right here is where the long part of this spring will go. So what you want to do is you got to twist this guy around. Like I said, it's kind of a pain. You got to twist this guy around and then set that long section of the spring inside. This is my least favorite part of where that little indentation is, and try and keep it. You got to twist it around once and maintain tension on this spring, okay, and put it in the center there. And lost it. Hang on, we're gonna get this. It's only gonna okay, again, twist this guy around. Now, once you get the rod through that first part of the spring, line up the second part while maintaining the tension on that second part. That's the tricky part. Okay. And of course, I've already lost it. Yeah. I hate this part. All right, I'm gonna try this again. Okay. So like I said, twist it around. Drop that spring in there, slide this rod through the first part, line up the spring so the second part maintains that tension, keeping that spring in the center. There we go. Almost home. There we go. Once you get that through and you maintain the tension, now it's finally on. So you'll know that you put this on correctly. When you pop it off, it's going to snap down. Okay? Again, this is one of the biggest pains to put on, which is one of the reasons why I put it on first. The other reason why I put this on first is you want to make sure that you put this on before you put any parts of the barrel on. If you tried to put the barrel nut on or the barrel, there would be no room to slide this little guy on. So put the dust cover on first. You're going to have a little patience. Just arrange this spring make sure that the long part of the spring stays where this little detent is, or this little, let's see if I can get this lined up in the camera correctly. There we go. Make sure that it stays where that long section of this little detent is. Twist it around, maintain the tension, slide it all the way through, and then you should be good to go. Okay, so we got the dust cover on. Again, make sure that the dust cover is one of the very first things that you put on, primarily because it's one of the biggest pains to put, to putting these things together, in my opinion anyway. Also, you want to make sure that the dust cover goes on before you even think about putting the barrel or the MLock on, okay? Also, we talked about some of the costs that you're going to incur while you're doing one of these. This thing right here is called an upper vice block. You can pick one of these up for between $25, $35. The reason I like this one is this one will fit either an AR-15 or an AR-10. Could you put one of these together without one of these? Maybe, but it's definitely going to be a lot more difficult and a lot more easy if you pick one of these up, okay? So, one of the other things you're going to want to get is just a little gunsmith hammer. Again, you can pick these up, probably get a set with all of the pin punches that you're going to need. You're going to need to pick up a set of pin punches, and you're also going to need what are called starter pin punches. You could pick up probably the hammer and all the pin punches that you're going to need between $20 to $30, maybe max. But you're going to need to pick up a set of these. Those are some of those one-time costs. Once you have them, you're good to go. Something else that you're definitely going to want to pick up is something called a bench block. We're going to get into this a little bit later. You'll need one of these to really, it makes it a lot easier to take apart a bolt carrier group. And you're going to need these, especially when you start working on your lower, to put the trigger guard on and a few other things. So you can pick one of these up for about $15 on Amazon, pretty much anywhere. So again, not going to add those to the overall cost. Those are some of those one-time costs, but you are going to have to pick some of those up if you don't already have one. So next thing we're going to do here is put on the forward assist. So when you put this in, forward assist goes in right here, and on top you're going to see a little hole here, and there's also a little hole on the bottom where the forward assist goes. You'll notice that the top of this is kind of angled. You want to insert this so that the angled piece of this is going curved towards the ejection port side of your upper. So what we'll do is we're going to slide this in. And what I like to do is I will take another pin punch and put it in through the bottom side to kind of hold this guy in place as we're working on it. So that'll keep it in place as we're trying to add this. Again, this starter pin punch, I don't know if I've got the right size. I believe this is the right size. Don't do that, by the way. Lucky landing. Will allow this to rest inside of here. I'm going to need a bigger size. I believe we're going to be using this guy right here. This is going to make it a lot easier to get this thing started, okay? So you want to put that pin on top of the hole, and once we get it started, then we can use a normal punch to go ahead and put this in all the way. Give me 1 second here, guys. It's also the challenge with Cerakoting. Sometimes you got to make a little extra room. So, again, we're going to get this guy started with the pin punch starter. There we go. All right, so now it's started. Once you get it started down in, again, we got the pin on the bottom kind of holding it, and what we did until I just removed it, holding it into place. Then as we finish putting this guy the rest of the way in, that should just go ahead and release. And once we get it down far enough, which I believe we are there now, you can go ahead and take that bottom pin out, and that will keep the forward assist into place as we finish inserting this. Now, one thing I would highly recommend that you do, this is entirely up to you. It's a firearm. Firearms are gonna get battle scars. That's what's supposed to happen with a firearm. However, we just took all the time and trouble to Cerakote this thing, so we may keep it as nice as we can, looking as nice as we can for as long as we can. So I'm gonna tape this up, and hopefully that will keep the surface of our upper from getting scratched up and dinged here. Let's see how we do. Okay, so now we're gonna we can continue to use this starter pin punch until we get it down to a certain point. Then we're going to take a normal punch and go ahead and secure it the rest of the way down. And you want this to be flush with the top of the upper, obviously. You want that, that pin to go all the way down, okay? That's just about on the surface, but it's not quite flat. And make sure that you have this tighter than I do, so that way it won't go creeping up on you. All right, let me see if I can get that just a little bit more flush there. It doesn't look too awful bad. I got dinged up just a touch. So now our forward assist is locked into place. The pin is all the way through. It's being held where it needs to be held. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and put the barrel nut and the barrel and the MLock on. All right, we got the dust cover on, got the forward assist on. Now we're going to put the barrel and the barrel nut on. It's pretty clear how this goes in. At the top, there's a little notch right here. And then right here, there's a little knob that sticks out. So you want to put your barrel in. So that little knob goes right in that notch. Might need a little gentle persuasion to put that guy all the way in. Now, to put your barrel nut on. Okay, your barrel nut's going to go on right here. First thing you want to do is we want to take a little gun grease. And we're going to put it on the threads here before we put our barrel nut on. Don't need a lot, but you want a little bit of gun grease going on these threads before we put this guy on. Now, we talked about some of the equipment that you may or may not already have. One thing that you want to have to put this barrel nut on is a torque wrench. That's one of the things that I still do not have. I do not have the appropriate torque wrench anyway to put one of these barrel nuts on. Each one of them are a little bit different. I would highly recommend that you do get a torque wrench to finish tighten this down. If you just use a normal wrench to tighten this, I've done it before. I haven't had any issue. Don't over torque this. Make sure that you don't add any weight to it or over torque it. Make sure it's tight, obviously. But your best option is going to be to get a torque wrench and crank it down to whatever the recommended specs are for your particular barrel. So it's just that easy, though, to put this barrel on. Nothing more to it. Okay, now that we've got the dust cover on, the forward assist on, we've got the barrel and the barrel nut on, we're going to put on the gas block. Now, in an earlier video, I mentioned that I might want to use an adjustable gas block on this. Well, I was originally going to go with the gas block it came with. I changed my mind and I got an upgraded adjustable gas block. This one has the adjustment on the front. That way, I will be able to gas this up and gas it down. And especially with a 300 Blackout that you're planning on suppressing, having an adjustable gas block is definitely going to come in handy. And shorter barrel AR platforms are a little gassy, so it does definitely come in handy to be able to control that. Now, this one already had the gas tube installed. If you get a gas block that does not have the gas tube installed, it's not all that difficult to put in. The top of the barrel right here has a little hole in it. And there's a hole in the top of your gas block. So when I put this gas block on right here, when a shot is fired, some of the gas that comes out of the end of the barrel is going to go up that hole. It's going to be forced up that hole. There's a hole in this tube that needs to be lined up with the hole in the barrel and the hole in the top of the gas block, so that gas is forced back through this tube. It hits your bolt carrier group, which is what forces your bolt carrier group back, which is what ejects the spent cartridge, and then the bolt carrier group slams up against the buffer, and the buffer spring comes back forward and loads a new round. So to put one of these tubes on, there's a curve on this. You just want to make sure that the curve is going up, and you line it up, and there's some holes on the end of the gas tube that are going to line up with where the pin goes. So as long as you get this pin through, you should have no problem. The hole on the tube should be lined up with the hole on the top of the gas block. Just make sure that the curve goes up. Otherwise, if you put it on upside down, you twist this around, there's going to be no hole. You're not going to get any gas, and you're not going to be able to eject your spent cartridge and load a new round. So to put this guy on, we slide it down, and on the top of our upper here, there's a little hole that this tube is going to slide in. It goes into this area here, which is going to hit the key on the bolt carrier group, and then as the gas goes through this tube, that's what's going to eject your spent cartridge. So once we get that guy in place, there are 2 Allen screws on the bottom here. This is what we are going to use to tighten these down. Now, I have already put some blue Loctite on these. I would highly recommend that you Loctite these. I'm going to leave it up to you. I would never use red Loctite. Blue Loctite, you're going to be fine. If you ever need to remove this, you will be able to. If you put red Loctite on there, good luck ever getting this off. So we're going to put a little bit of Loctite on the bottom of this here, and there will be a notch on the bottom of your barrel that will help on one of those Allen screws that help keeps it into place, and it will keep it from moving. So that, along with the Loctite, should keep our gas block positioned right where it needs to be. And there we go. Get out of there. And keep it from moving, keep the gas flowing back through the tube so that the bolt carrier group can do what it needs to do. It's just that simple to add your gas block to the top of the barrel. Again, on this one, I know it's kind of tough to see from this angle. On the front, there's going to be another little Allen key. It's going to be pretty obvious if you do have an adjustable gas block where your adjustment is done. There's an Allen key that will come with it. If you unscrew it, it's going to allow more gas to flow through. If you tighten it, it's going to restrict the amount of gas that's going through. Very handy when it comes to a shorter barrel AR, very handy when it comes to a 300 Blackout, and also very handy with any AR gas system platform that you want to suppress. So only thing we have left to do on the upper is put the MLock on now. All right. To get the MLock on top of the barrel here and get that secure, the screws that came with the MLock actually came inside of the bag that had the barrel nut in it. There's a little groove at the bottom. Sometimes it does help to take a flathead screwdriver, get it in there and pry it open a little bit to kind of loosen that up. It can be kind of a tight fit going over top of the barrel nut. That's actually a good thing. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a tight fit. going over top of that. But you're going to get in place, and it's going to be pretty easy to line it up. We might need to use some gentle persuasion with the hammer. And then once we get that into place, there's going to be 2 screws that we're going to add right here. You just want to make sure that the top of your rail matches up and everything is perfectly level right there, and we should be good to go. So, since I didn't think ahead and bring any of my rags with me, I'm just going to use a pair of gloves. And use some gentle persuasion. Yeah, it's going on, but... And again, this is supposed to be a tight fit. You want this on here tight. And also, Cerakoting this will tend to make some of these parts just a bit more snug, which again is not necessarily a bad thing. All right. We're getting there. That's close. That's close. Not quite. Need to break out a heavier hammer. In front of our MLock there, since we took the time and trouble to Cerakote it, gonna get that guy covered up. A couple more taps. And we should be able to get this guy lined up. It does not want to seem to want to go that last little bit. We're gonna make it go. There we go. All right, that looks pretty darn good. There's a very slight gap there. I do want to get that taken care of. There we go. That looks pretty good. It's lined up perfectly with the rail on the upper. Everything seems to be straight, definitely tight. Now all we need to do is secure these 2 Allen screws right there. Again, adding a little blue Loctite is never a bad idea. So I am going to add some blue Loctite to those 2 screws. Put those 2 screws in here, and that's it. And then the last thing we would have to do is put the flash hider on. But again, I am waiting on a 30 cal suppressor that should be here pretty much any week now. I might go ahead and leave the flash hider off in the hopes that my suppressor will get here by the time I'm ready to shoot this. So putting the flash hider on is pretty straightforward. You're gonna put it on there. You might wanna use a cross washer. I would not use blue Loctite. I wouldn't use any Loctite on that. Actually, if you do, definitely use blue. Do not ever use red, just in case you do need to take it off. But that is pretty much it. Other than adding the bolt carrier group, which again, we're going to have to take it apart, oil it, clean it, everything else. We'll go over that real fast. And then adding the charging handle, that is pretty much concludes this part of the upper build. Okay, we are almost home on the upper part of this build. The last thing we got to do is put in the bolt carrier group and then put in the charging handle. Now, I have had a few bolt carrier groups sent to me in my time. I have never received one that was bone dry. When you get a new build or you buy a new firearm of any kind, you want to make sure that you clean and oil it, even if it's brand new. There'll be a lot of residual oils on it that come from the factory. And as I looked down this barrel definitely needs cleaned. It was shipped to me in a plastic bag. I probably should have done this before I put it together, but we are where we are. So we're gonna go ahead and take this bolt carrier group apart and at the very least oil it up. So to take the bolt carrier group apart, it's pretty simple. There is a little cotter pin here that we're gonna need to take out. This is where your bench block definitely comes in handy. So what you wanna do first is punch out this little pin. This holds the firing pin in place. All right. Punch this guy out. It's gonna be stubborn, fine. We're gonna make it do what we want it to do. There we go. And the nice thing about these bench blocks too, what I like about this one is it's magnetic. It will hang on to anything that gets shot down inside of here, so it won't go flying off and you won't have to go searching for it, which is quite nice. Once you take the pin out, then the firing pin drops right out. Now, the next thing we got to do is take the bolt out. There's a little pin right here that is twisted to the side. We need to twist this around so that it is parallel with the bolt carrier group and kind of pull this out. I usually use needle nose and pull out this little pin. There's a little bit of oil on that. Now we can pop the bolt out of the bolt carrier group. If I were cleaning this, I would probably also remove this pin and remove the extractor, but I'm just gonna oil it up and I think that will get it done. Now, ARs like to be ran wet. It's okay to oil your ARs. However, one part of the bolt carrier group anyway that you don't want to over oil is your firing pin. Don't go too overboard on oiling the firing pin. You definitely want to get some oil on it, just don't add too much. So the fact that this guy was bone dry, we're gonna definitely add some oil and we're gonna remove the excess, but we're gonna go ahead and get this oiled up. Yeah, it was just a touch dirty now, wasn't it? Then we're gonna put it back together, put a little oil on the charging handle, install that, and we are off and running as far as the upper goes. Okay. Again, it's okay to get ARs a little wet. ARs like to be ran wet. And also don't get too overboard right here where these pistons are. You definitely want to add some oil, just don't add a little bit too much where you know, it's going to go into the key, kind of where this is, you know, kind of creates your gas chamber right there. Okay. So put a little bit of oil on the bolt, and then we will put some on this pin, put a little bit on this firing pin, retainer pin, a little redundant, but that is what it's called. And we're gonna put a little bit of oil, a little bit, not too much, on the firing pin. And then we can go ahead and put this guy back together. There we go. So when you put this back together, you want to make sure that the extractor side of this is facing outward. There's only one way this pin will go in. So you're going to know if you put the bolt in incorrectly. You're going to know right away because the pin, this pin, will not go in. So we put this pin in, and again, to put it back in, it has to be parallel with the bolt carrier group. You know what, that needs a little bit more. That's still dry. I'm going to leave it as is for now. Okay, slide that in. Now, the next thing we do is we got to twist this pin back so it's perpendicular, and then put the firing pin back down in. Okay, make sure that seats all the way down. Now we can put the firing pin, retainer pin back in. Okay, make sure that goes back in flush. Yeah, that's a little better. Again, insane how dry this thing was. And I know I'm over oiling this, and I am going to remove a lot of the residual oil, but this thing was bone dry. Okay. All right. Now, all we got to do is add a little bit of oil to the charging handle and put the charging handle in and put the bolt carrier group in, and that will conclude the upper part of the build. Okay. And when we put the lower together, there's a few more things. It's a little bit more involved. Honestly, it's fairly simple. The only tricky part about putting the lower together is maybe the bolt catch. There's a little trick to that, though. It's actually pretty simple and straightforward, but the most challenging parts of this are definitely behind us, so that's the good news. All right. Again, put the charging handle in here, put it maybe halfway in, make sure that the bolt is extended, make sure that the key is facing downward, secure that, and that does it. And that concludes, okay then, and that concludes putting the upper together. Now, the upper part of this is pretty much 100% done. Now, again, we were talking about keeping track of some of the costs that we need to think about as we put this together. So, we did mention the cost of some of the tools that you might need. I'm not going to go ahead and add those to the running cost, but we did have the cost of the bolt carrier group. A bolt carrier group, you can find a decent one. You can find it on sale sometimes. It's going to run you anywhere between about $80 to maybe $150. This one was $110. And the charging handle, and this is an ambidextrous charging handle. If you get a cheap one, you can find a charging handle for maybe $12, $13. I spent $25 on this ambidextrous charging handle. So we do have the added cost of the bolt carrier group and the charging handle. We are going to go ahead and add that to the total cost. But the upper is completed. We've got the adjustable gas lock on it. Again, I haven't added the flash hider. Installing that, you're going to twist it on, tighten it up, put some blue Loctite in if you want to. We got the adjustable gas block on here. We've got the barrel on. We've got the MLock on. We've got the dust cover. We've got the forward assist. Now we've got our charging handle. We've got our bolt carrier group. That concludes the upper part of the build. So, again, thank you very much for watching. Stay 2A strong.
I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm gone.